Today, we're going to learn about one way that ecosystems in Kansas and around the world are connected to each other. We have talked about many of the ecosystems of Kansas this year: prairie, forests, ponds, lakes, streams, and rivers. Today, we will talk about one way that our ecosystems are connected to each other. Remember, rain falls on the land, including the forests, prairies, agricultural fields, and the pastures. Rain also falls on ponds, lakes, streams, rivers, and oceans. Sometimes water flows over land into ponds, lakes, streams, and rivers. And sometimes water soaks into the soil and then flows underground into ponds, lakes, streams, and rivers. Sometimes water flows from rivers, streams, lakes, and ponds onto land. When lots of rain falls very quickly, or for many days, the water can rise and flood the land. Or in the spring, if the snow melts quickly in the mountains, it can cause rivers nearby to flood. So rain and the water that flows over the ground or underground connects land and aquatic systems. Water flowing from land to aquatic systems and from aquatic systems to land can move soil and nutrients from one to the other. And organisms, big and small, can flow from land into water and water onto land too. There is another link that connects land and aquatic systems. Wetlands are the border between aquatic systems and land. Wetlands can be found all over the world, on the edges of streams, rivers, lakes, and ponds, and oceans. They filter out soils that might run into the ponds, lakes, streams, rivers, and oceans, and make the water murky. When wetlands are not present, the soil flowing in water can cover up organisms that need light and oxygen from the water to live. Wetlands also filter out excess nutrients. Why is that good? We know plants and animals need nutrients. If there are too many nutrients, it upsets the balance in our connected ecosystems. Let's look at what can happen. Too many nutrients flowing into a freshwater system can cause too much algae to grow. When there's too much algae, the algae can shade other organisms that need sun. But there is an even bigger problem when the algae die. When algae die, the decomposers break down the algae. To do their work, they need oxygen. The decomposers use so much oxygen that the other organisms, which also need oxygen, like fish, snails, and tadpoles, don't have enough oxygen, so they die. It can be very sad to see. This can happen if farm fields are too close to the water and the nutrients the farmers use to grow their crops do not all stay in the fields, but flow into the water nearby and cause too much algae to grow. It can also happen if there are lots of cattle near a river or stream or pond. Cattle can poop a lot, and there are lots of nutrients in cattle poop. If too much poop flows into the water, the nutrients can cause algae to grow too much. The same problems can happen in the ocean. If too many nutrients are carried in rivers down to the ocean, lots of algae grow. And when the decomposers break down the dead algae, the organisms die from lack of oxygen. These areas in the ocean are called dead zones. This is one where the Mississippi River flows into the Atlantic Ocean in the Gulf of Mexico. We learned that wetlands act like filters. If there is a wetland by a lake, stream, or river, the plants will absorb the nutrients and use those nutrients to grow. This keeps lots of nutrients out of streams and rivers and keeps them healthy. And healthy rivers that flow to the ocean means there are fewer dead zones. Here are some of the plants that filter out nutrients. During heavy rains, if water is flowing too fast, the plants in wetlands can slow the water down so it can't move as far. That can reduce or stop flooding. Wetlands are very important and very beautiful. Amazing animals and plants depend upon wetlands. Unfortunately, people do not always appreciate how important it is to protect both terrestrial, land, and aquatic, water, ecosystems. When the wetlands are destroyed to build cities or towns or to plant crops, the land is more vulnerable to flooding. What makes a wetland a wetland? It is an area where there has been water there for at least part of the year, for many years, and where plants and microbes are adapted to being wet much of the time. There are many organisms that are found in wetlands. Here in the United States, we recognized the importance of wetlands in the last century and passed laws to protect wetlands. When we protect our beautiful wetlands, they can protect us and land and the water that we depend upon. What links the ecosystems we have talked about this year? Wetlands. Do you think wetlands are always wet? No. What are some ways that wetlands protect the land and the water? They act as filters and slow down water. Thanks for listening. If you want to learn more about wetlands, you can find books about wetlands at your library.